G'day guys, Mike here. Welcome back to my channel, where today I want to unpack one of the most anticipated and global comedy specials of all time, and that is Chris Rock's brand new special, Selective Outrage. Let's get into it.
Chris, they're ready for you.
Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about this special after I watched it last night, and I had a bunch of thoughts around some of the commentary he was trying to make, because at the end of the day, particularly in 2023, I feel like basically every comedian is just trying to make some kind of satirical point about wider social life and society that they live in. And I think this comedy special from Chris Rock, which is an exclusive Netflix deal that I believe was streamed live on Netflix in what seems like a new kind of thing they might be trialing, is absolutely one of the most anticipated comedy specials of all time. We all know why. It's not because Chris Rock played the zebra from Madagascar, or because he made a sitcom about himself called Everybody Hates Chris, which I always thought was a really funny kind of reversal of what this guy did.
Hi, I'm Ray and I live here in Long Island.
But seriously, every single person in the whole world last year saw this go down.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
And undoubtedly, this was one of the biggest WTF moments in the history of the world. Like seriously, there was the Big Bang, and then there was...
my wife's name out your f***ing mouth!
And like I said, that was a year ago. A lot has happened since then, and it hasn't really been talked about very much, particularly on the side of Chris Rock. Will Smith did address it in this weird kind of piece to camera question and answer style apology video that felt very PR.
I apologize. My behavior was unacceptable.
This whole moment was such an incredibly insane moment of the world, and every single person in the world was talking about this. I am telling you, this was huge. People couldn't figure out if it was a bit, if it was set up, if it was real, what the hell was going on. Then Will Smith won the Oscar, did an acceptance speech, got a standing ovation. I mean,
I want to be a vessel for love. I want to
while Chris Rock is just on the stage being like, But really, the whole world just wanted to know, what did Chris Rock think of this? And he's been very secretive about this. He's done shows since, even shows here in Australia. I didn't see those shows, but from what I am aware, he said at those shows that he's not ready to talk about the Will Smith stuff. Fair enough, Chris. We know there are millions of dollars for the exclusive rights to that bit. But in the 60 to 70 minute comedy special, there's sort of three through lines, and the Will Smith stuff doesn't really come in until the last 10 minutes. Instead, Chris Rock takes aim at a more broad scope of the current social and political climate around, I guess, wokeness in inverted commas, cancel culture also in inverted commas, and general sensitivity and victimhood in modern society. And let's be real, guys, there's nothing particularly new about this. This has been a big trend, particularly in male comedians and also older female comedians. We've seen specials like this in the last 2 years from Ricky Gervais, Jimmy Carr, and probably most notably Dave Chappelle. All of them protesting against modern sensitivity and woke culture, and maybe having a point, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So if all of these well-off, wealthy, middle-aged men are commentating on how cancel culture has gone too far and woke culture has just gone too far, what are we to make of all of this? Chris Rock delves into this idea of selective outrage a lot. I mean, so much so that he named his whole fucking special around it. But I suppose through this concept, he's trying to make a broader point about hypocrisy, particularly in a certain branch of politics. I'll tell you a secret. It's the radical left, and also probably the radical right. That's the secret. That's who he's talking about. And to be honest, the last 5 to 10 years have been riddled with huge global attempts to challenge the status quo, to make a change, to make a difference, respecting minorities and being more open and aware of the struggles that people not like me, perhaps, have. And I think most people would surmise that that is a really good thing. I guess the point that Chris Rock is trying to make alongside his contemporaries, whether it's Gervais or Jimmy Carr or Dave Chappelle or whoever it might be, is that there is a hypocrisy involved here. There is a misalignment of truth, that ideas are squashed, people aren't able to make just jokes anymore, and etc. And I think, like most people, I'm in two minds about this. Of course, there is the irony that these are very, very wealthy men talking about how things have gone too far and they can't say the same old jokes they used to say. But as someone who's quite centrist in my politics, I do think that there is a destruction of rational debate and free thinking and open-mindedness in modern discourse. And I do often feel bigotry from both sides of the political spectrum in just believing that their perspective is so true and so right that they don't even feel as though they need to debate it or have open exchange of ideas. In fact, a lot of those people on the radical extremes of both political sides seem to just want to squash anyone that has a different opinion. I think that's a big problem because I think our society needs free, open discourse to function and to make progress. And I think a common argument here that demonstrates this hypocrisy as all of these people on Twitter or on the internet is that these people must on some level be aware of the general unethical nature of purchasing a smartphone like an iPhone. And I suppose the standards that they apply to other people with their own ethics in this capitalistic landscape are not aligned with their own. They can justify making purchases that are unethical, but they don't offer the same liberties to other people. Of course, Chris Rock comes at this from a different perspective to people like Ricky Gervais, who did a huge bit around trans people in his most recent special, because Chris Rock is a black man who, just in case you're not aware, haven't had the best time in American history. But Chris Rock continues from there, talking about his wealth and his privilege, the privilege of his children, and his own failings as a husband, which he touched upon in his previous special, Tambourine. Infidelity, sex addiction, porn addiction, and the plight of men, I guess you could say. He doesn't offer excuses for any of his behavior, he just kind of puts it all on the table, which I feel like definitely humanizes him a fair bit and makes it easier to see his perspective. I think Chris does a really good job in this special of at least acknowledging the complexities of a lot of these issues. While yes, he is a black man, he's also exceptionally wealthy, and his children have extremely good opportunities because of the millions of dollars that he makes. And I suppose it kind of starts to dismantle this idea of like a privilege hierarchy and that there are different things that make you more or less privileged than other people, which there definitely is, but I suppose he puts it in this light of like, you don't really know someone's full story. The second half of the special is very focused around his perceived differences between men and women, which didn't really land too much for me. It felt very old school, focusing on female beauty and how women can get whatever they want with their bodies and beauty, and I didn't really think it felt apt or suitable in today's climate. I didn't find it particularly funny, and I guess I didn't think the social commentary he was making was relevant or necessary, where, like I said, he was trying to illustrate that everyone is in completely different circumstances, everyone has different positives and negatives, and some more than others, for sure, but I think he's trying to show a more rounded perspective of all of this stuff. And of course, we can all sit here and debate whether cancel culture actually exists or not, when people like Louis C.K. are selling out arena tours around the world. But I guess the answer to that lies in this special and other specials, again, by Rock's contemporaries, where a lot of them, like Jimmy Carr, start by saying something along the lines of, I don't want to offend anyone, but... And I think overall there is a general pushback from rational-minded people to no longer put up with this bullshit from one side of politics or the other. Most people are really open to having a rational debate, but they don't really have a platform or even a care to do it. So I think in some sense it is kind of important for these comedians to be putting those perspectives out there and to be saying, oh, enough is enough. We're not taking this anymore. I'm going to say some stuff that might offend you. And if you're offended, that's okay. You just got to cop it. I'm going to offend a lot of people. And the rest of it, you know the lines. Of course, the special ends with the call out to Will and Jada Smith. And I think I can put this bluntly. What Will Smith did was just assault on a national, international forum. I don't think there's an excuse for Will Smith's behavior. I think what he did was fundamentally wrong, and I think Chris Rock definitely came out the good guy in this scenario. So I don't blame him for throwing so much shade at the Smiths at the end of his special. He even alludes to his own upbringing, the values of his parents as to why he didn't hit Will back or do anything back, and also accuses Will Smith and the Smith family of being everything that this special is about Chris Rock not liking, which is selective outrage. He makes comment on Will Smith's size difference with himself, how small Chris Rock is comparatively, and the general trauma and pain that the incident caused him. And there's definitely a lot of anger here, but it seems pretty profoundly earned. Overall, I think I'd be fascinated to see how Will Smith responds to this, if at all. I think it would be wise for him to stay quiet and say nothing, but knowing his spontaneity, he might do something to retaliate. At the end of the day, when I try to break down the philosophy of Chris Rock's new special, I think overall what he's trying to say is that there's been an overcorrection, that people should be more free to voice their ideas even if they are somewhat controversial. And by somewhat controversial, I just mean that a certain side of politics don't like that view. And maybe even that there are more important and pressing issues than the somewhat minor stuff that people come up with by turning themselves into victims online. He condemns and criticizes the yearning and need for attention of our generation, and he doesn't stray away from the key message of many of his contemporaries before him. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Chris Rock's new special. What do you think of the Will Smith slap overall? And subscribe for more videos like this every single week. My name's Radio Mike. I'll catch you later.